Welcome back to our series about reverse meal planning. Now, I'm just going to set the record straight. Reverse meal planning can get really hard. It takes creativity, and honestly, it's just harder to me sometimes than a more traditional meal planning method. Okay. So, how do we stick with it and we don't give up? Okay. Well, sometimes we just have these great expectations or we put these huge goals on ourselves, and it really kind of sets us up for failure. And to be honest, if you fail even just a little bit, it gets really hard to keep trying. So let's skip the giving up part and let's look at a couple tips to help you stick with reverse meal planning. And honestly, this can help you stick with any kind of plan you're trying to make. Tip number one, start small. Just like these, little sproutlings here, they're going to grow up to be a big plant, but they had to start small. So, what I want you to try is instead of planning like a whole month or a whole week of meals, just set out some ideas for the next 2 to 3 nights of dinners. Okay. And as you get more comfortable and more confident, you can always add more. But the point is to start small. At my house, I usually have a running list of anywhere from like 4 to 6 dinners that I can make at any given time. Now, I probably easily have enough food in my house to make 30 to 40 dinners, but I'm just going to start with that small list. And as we think of new things or new items to try, my husband loves to send me, little messages all the time with different recipes and stuff. We'll just keep adding those to the list. And then either the night before or the morning of, we just kind of pick something off that list because I know I have all the ingredients for it. Plus, this kind of acts as my guide, so I know what to think ahead as far as pulling meat out from the freezer. Now, I also try to use the oldest items in my house. So I kind of have a starting point when I'm reverse meal planning because about every week, usually it's on Saturday or Sunday when I'm doing like a fridge clean out, I'll also go grab some items out of my pantry that are the oldest. And I'm like, these are the items that I need to use. So then I have a starting point there and I can just think of the next couple meals instead of trying to make like a big, huge list for a whole week or a whole month. Number two is to be flexible. I'm sure you've heard the saying that if you want to make God laugh, just tell him your plans. Well, I feel like the same applies to meal planning. And I swear, if I make this like gigantic, huge meal plan and I'm really strict on it, something's going to come up and just make a mess of all of my plans. So personally, I don't assign meals to a day. Like I've seen a lot of meal plans where they are, Wednesday I'm going to have this, Thursday I'm going to have this. And then sometimes they get around to that evening and they're like, you know what? I'm just not in the mood for tacos. I'm not in the mood for pasta. And that's fine. And this is where I kind of allow myself to be able to shift and have some flexibility when needed. And honestly, I have 2 young kids. They're 5 and 8, and my whole schedule can change in just a few hours. I can end up with a sick kid or something comes up. So I try to make my meal plan as flexible as possible. So I want you to think about that the next time you're planning. you know, Give yourself some wiggle room. Maybe have a couple items on that list that are super, super quick to make that just involve throwing it in the air fryer or the oven. And then have a couple meals that are a little bit more complicated, maybe take a little bit more effort. And then as the days go on, you can go, oh, I don't want to make this tonight because it's super easy. I'm probably going to need to make that tomorrow night when I'm going to, have so much stuff to do. So when you get flexible with your meal planning, it can actually cause you a whole lot less stress. And of course, the less stress you have, the more likely you are to stick to it. Now, number three is very difficult. It was extremely difficult for me, and it is to know your limits. Okay. I mentioned before about having some meals that take longer, some meals that are quicker. Well, that's just going to have to be a necessity for most people. For example, Wednesdays at my house are therapy days. My daughter goes to a therapy appointment every week. It's in another town. Just the driving back and forth takes over an hour. Now, these days, so I'm working all the way up until that point. I'm driving a bunch. I'm sitting around waiting. And then by the time I get home, I am so tired. I have so little energy. And thankfully, my husband has actually been able to take over doing therapy days because his schedule is better for it. But here's the thing, I had to ask. I had to tell him, hey, Wednesdays are crazy stressful to me, especially if I have a morning meeting that day. And it was really taking its toll on me. So I had to speak up and tell him, hey, this is where my pain point is, because we kind of assume that your family or your partner or whoever is in your house, that they know what is going on in your head. But that's not always the case. My husband had absolutely no idea how stressful Wednesdays were for me. Now, this isn't really another tip, but I feel like we just need to get this out there, okay? We need to talk about it. Saying it out loud that you need help and asking for it is not a bad thing. Moms especially, but a lot of women in general, we take the weight of everything in the house because we assume that we have to. Okay. And it is totally okay to let everyone else in your house, whether it's a roommate, whether it's kids, whether it's another adult in the house, just to let them know that you need help. Okay. It's totally okay. And I feel like we bottle stuff up inside and we assume that everybody else knows that we're stressed and that we're not handling this well, but you've got to learn how to speak up. You don't wait until you explode. You find a good time and you say, hey, these days are really tough. I'm struggling doing this. Can you help me? Please. Is there, even if you're just asking for suggestions or if you already have a solution in mind, say, hey, I have this problem. I think I know how to fix it. Can you help me do this? It is totally fine to ask for help. And I wish more people would take that initiative. And I feel like it would stop so many like fights and arguments because instead of waiting until all heck breaks loose, you're recognizing the problem up front. You're offering a possible suggestion or a way to, solve the problem. And I think that just makes for a much better, well-rounded relationship. Like I said, whether it's between a husband and a wife, whether it's roommates, whether it's multiple people in the house, just please ask for help if you need it. So now that we've talked about my 3 basic tips and also when to ask for help and how to do it, I really want you to ask yourself the following questions, because what works for me, what works for Budget Betty, what works for Sally may not always work for you. So here's the questions I want you to ask yourself. What are some ways that I can keep myself on track meal planning? Do I have a specific routine that I follow? What would be the ideal routine to follow? Like, is it doing meal planning on a certain day, grocery shopping on a separate day? Do you need a reward? I had mentioned in another video that I'm not a huge fan of doing dishes, but they have to be done. So every time I do the dishes and it's done, I treat myself with one of those little tiny pieces of chocolate. Okay, that's my reward for doing the crap that I don't want to do. So maybe you need a reward for doing meal planning if it's something that you don't necessarily enjoy. Now, what is something that you could do that would motivate you to stick with meal planning? Is it, you know, color coding? Is it using stickers? Is it getting a board and doing fancy writing on it? There's so many little things that can make you feel excited and give you joy to do them. So I want you to really think about that. And once you do think about that, you may just find the answer you're looking for as far as how to keep meal planning and how specifically to keep reverse meal planning. Now, we are going to have one more video in this series, so check us out next week and you'll see the last one of this series. Have a great day. Bye.